the lie in a crumpled strip of paper that smelled like apples and rain. The receipt slid out from under the passenger seat when I braked at a yellow light on Troost, thin as a strip of snakeskin. Angry Orchard six-pack, a brand of dark chocolate Hannah would never touch. She says cider is for teenagers and sugar gives her headaches. But the chocolate? That was the exact bar her running buddy at work, Ethan, posts after every 10K with a proud, sweaty grin. That was the hook, the wrong groceries in my car on a night I was on shift. I drive delivery for a living. I noticed the small things, the way a front porch tells you more about a customer than the delivery instructions ever do. A cracked pot, a flag, a spare pair of boots by the door. Patterns keep you alive on the road and keep you honest at home. That morning in Kansas City, Missouri, a day after a storm that made the sidewalks look newly rinsed, my whole life tilted because of a number and a brand on a strip of paper I almost threw away. The receipt was from the Hy-Vee on State Line. Timestamp 8:13 p.m. The night before, I was loading pallets until dawn. Hannah had texted goodnight at 9:02 with a photo of Clover, our mixed mutt, curled like a comma at her feet. She doesn't drink cider. She jokes she'd rather have a beer that knows what it is. But there it was on the receipt, along with dark chocolate bars from a brand I'd only seen on Ethan's desk and in his Instagram stories after long runs, single origin, 85%, smug in its foil. I told myself a reasonable story. I told myself she was being generous, buying treats for a girls' night that didn't require my approval. I told myself she'd grabbed the wrong thing. I set the receipt on the dash like a leaf I might press in a book later. Then I finished my round, humming along with the route like I always do, counting the city's fountains like mile markers. Kansas City looks prettier when you've been awake all night. It's cleaner, it's quiet. But pretty is what a place looks like when you're far away. Up close, you notice the second details. 2 wine glass rings on the butcher block when there's only one of you at home. A calendar entry that lands precisely when you're gone. Hannah's a numbers person. Accountant for a logistics company near the plaza. She keeps our budget in a neat little spreadsheet that makes my head hurt and our mortgage easy. She runs 3 nights a week, says pounding the pavement keeps the math from turning her brain into oatmeal. When she started running with Ethan from her office, the friend who just got her pace, who knows every hill in Brookside, I was glad she had company on dark streets. You tell yourself things like that when you want to be the easy husband, the patient one, the guy who trusts. After my shift, I came home and set the receipt on the counter with my keys. Clover stood up, shook his tags so they chimed, then trotted over to me with the kind of unconditional relief that makes you want to be better. Hannah came in from the bedroom, hair in a high ponytail. Last night's makeup softened around her eyes in a way I know because I love her. She kissed my cheek and then the air next to it. "You're early," she said, half smile, half inventory. Traffic was a dream. I touched the slip of paper with one finger. "You get groceries last night?" "I ran by Hy-Vee before the rain." She opened a cabinet that didn't need opening and then shut it softly. "Why?" "You bought cider?" I kept my voice level. I am good at level. You don't get to wait tables in other people's kitchens when they're on fire if you aren't good at keeping the room steady. She glanced at the receipt like it was a test she could still pass. "Kelsey's birthday," she said. "She likes cider, and the chocolate's for Jenny. You know Jen, she's training up to a half." "Kelsey's a tequila girl," I said before I could catch myself, because Kelsey once drank straight from a bottle on our deck and announced she was too old to care. Hannah's eyes flicked up. Clover, usually a golden retriever in a thrift store dog's body, hung back instead of wedging himself between us, which he always does when we touch. Dogs don't care about lies. Dogs care about air pressure, the way a room feels when the barometer drops. "I'm beat," I said when my mouth couldn't decide if it wanted a fight. "Gonna take a shower." In the bathroom, I looked at myself in the mirror and saw the man I know, 44, delivery driver shoulders, and a forehead that could earn itself a second mortgage. I don't scare easy. But the receipt sat on the counter like a little white witness, and suddenly I didn't know which parts of me were the kind that walk into smoke and which parts of me were the kind that back out of rooms. Everything might have ended there if not for the next small thing. In our dishwasher, after my shower, I found a stemware rack we've never used, folded down and holding 2 wine glasses. We don't buy fancy wine. We pour red in mason jars. Hannah hates hand washing anything. Dishwashers are just hot closets, she says, like a person who has made peace with technology doing the boring work. But there they were, 2 glasses drying in the dark. Not lipsticked, not dirty, just wet in a way that said last night counted. I'm the guy who takes notes on the backs of envelopes, on gum wrappers, on the inside of my palm. Box numbers, gate codes, shortcut, turns no GPS knows. I went to the fridge for milk, tugged down the calendar we keep with magnets, checked her scribbles. Run with E, 8 p.m. That little letter was a nod to a friendship I'd accepted like I accept roundabouts and potholes. The third of these runs in 2 weeks had fallen exactly on my overnight shifts. Not an accident, a rhythm. That night, I took Clover for a longer walk than he deserved. We went past the nice bungalows in Waldo where women plant flowers in the space between sidewalk and street, even though it's technically city property. Past the park where the lights on the tennis courts are always a little too bright. To the corner where our neighbor, Mr. Boyd, stands outside like a gargoyle turned friendly, watching the world. He's one of those retired guys who puts motion cameras everywhere and calls them home insurance. He waved with 2 fingers and rubbed Clover's head. Your lady friend was out last night, he said. Not in a gossiping way, just in an I saw the weather way. With her runners, I said. Had a fella with her, he said. He points with his chin, an old man's way of saying, of course there's a camera. They were under your garage light for about 10 minutes. Hardly big news, just unusual. I said, and tasted metal. You still have the clips? He squinted like he was trying to decide if I was a guy who brings tools back after he borrows them. You know I don't go around sharing people's business. I'm not asking you to, I said. I'm asking if I can see my garage. He shrugged. In that way old men shrug when you've answered correctly. Come by tomorrow, I'll cue it up. I went home and found Hannah at the table with her laptop, glasses perched on the bridge of her nose precisely, tapping numbers into columns, neat little black ladders she can climb. The sound of typing has always calmed me. This time, it made me want to unplug the modem just to watch everything go quiet. You're working late, I said. Quarterlies, she said. Someone set 3 dates for April and then took all of them, like a toddler. She didn't look up. You and Clover make a lap for me? We did. I touched Clover's ear. He didn't lean into my hand like he usually does. He just looked at me, patient and a little sad, the way dogs look at us when we don't know yet what they already learned about the air. The next day, I stood in Mr. Boyd's living room, breathing in the scent of old carpet and lemon cleaner. He has a little desk by the window with a screen that shows 4 squares of his world. Driveway, backyard, front step, garage. He clicked. He rewound. He found the clip like a fisherman finds a lure he lost in the weeds. There they were. My garage door, the wash of light across the concrete like a stage. Hannah, her hair damp from a run, the shape of her shoulder? I know the way a mechanic knows the shape of an alternator. Ethan in a quarter zip and smugness. They stood too close. They touched forearms in a way people pretend is nothing. They hugged. It wasn't a lover's press. It wasn't a joke. It was precise and private and the wrong thing under my gutter. That all? I asked when the clip ended. My voice sounded like gravel. That's all, he said gently. He put a hand on my shoulder. I didn't know I needed it until it was there. You want the file? Yes, I said. Please. He slid it onto a thumb drive like he was performing a small, solemn ritual. He didn't ask questions. If there's one thing old men know how to do, it's sit with another man's pain without making it about themselves. I didn't go home and start a fight. I went home and made chicken. Salt, pepper, olive oil in a pan, sizzling like applause. I set the table. I poured water into 2 glasses because water is the opposite of wine. When Hannah came in from work, she kissed the air again and put her bag on the chair. She always puts her bag on, the one that has a groove now, like a line in a map. "Smells good," she said. "It will be," I said. "We need to talk about something after dinner." She went very still, a deer in a small clearing that isn't hers. "Is it money?" "In a way," I said. June thundered overhead from the family who rents the other side of our duplex. Our house hummed. The dishwasher had that wet metal smell. The late light threw a stripe across the table. The dog sat at my feet like a man who knew the punchline. We ate without theater. She told me about a guy at work who still uses Excel 2007 and how you can tell by the way his files go dumb when she tries to open them. I told her about a family with a trampoline on their lawn that looks like it launches kids straight to the moon. We served ourselves seconds. We didn't talk about running. We didn't talk about cider. After I cleared plates, I set a neat stack of paper in the center of the table. The Hy-Vee receipt on top. A printed screenshot of the calendar with the runs marked. A printed clip from the neighbor's camera, frozen on a frame where Ethan's hand is a half-inch from her wrist. The thumb drive sat next to the stack like a period at the end of a sentence. Next to it, a photo on my phone, open to the dishwasher stemware rack, cradling 2 glasses in silver arms like a secret. "What's that?" she asked, and it sounded like a joke, except she didn't smile. "These are numbers," I said, the words coming out in a tone I didn't plan but recognized as mine. "This is you." She looked at the receipt. She looked at the camera still. She looked at me. "This is crazy," she said, but the word didn't have any air in it. "You're making a board like a detective." "Do I need red string?" I asked. It came out drier than I meant. "Tell me what I'm looking at." "You know what you're looking at," she said. And for a second she sounded tired in a way that wasn't about work. Then she caught herself, like she'd tripped and pretended it was a dance move. Kelsey liked the cider. Jenny liked the chocolate. We ran with the group. We cooled down by the garage because life is not a movie. And the wine glasses. I had a friend over. Which friend? "What does it matter?" she said, and there it was, the tilt. The switch from explanation to offense. Gaslight's first little spark. "You're at work every night." I breathe differently. "You leave me alone with a dog that likes you more than me." "He likes the person who tells the truth," I said, and regretted the meanness before it fully finished leaving my mouth. "Do I need to play the clip?" She flinched like I'd said slap, not play. "Please don't." "Then talk to me," I said. "Talk to me like I'm here, not a problem you're trying to balance." She put her hands flat on the table like a swimmer on the edge of a pool. "We're unhappy," she said. "You're gone. I'm bored." "Ethan is." She searched for a noun. She didn't find one. "He's not me," I said for her, because finishing a sentence can be cruel, and sometimes you reach for the cruelty nearest you because it feels like a way to keep from drowning. "He listens," she said, and then she looked down the hall, where Clover had gone to lie in his corner by the laundry room, choosing the cool floor over this hot conversation. "He asks about my day. He likes the same chocolate I do." "You don't like that chocolate," I said. She laughed, a quick, harsh sound. "Exactly," she said. "I started to." We were quiet for a minute. The neighbor's sprinkler hissed. A train called from somewhere near Union Station like it always does at night, like a lonely sound trying on a coat. "I'm not going to scream," I said finally. "I'm not going to tell your mother or post anything. I fix things by lining them up and naming them. So here they are. A receipt, a schedule, a video, a dishwasher. I'm not asking you to deny what they add up to. I'm asking you what we do now." She stared at the thumb drive like it might erase itself if she refused to blink. "You want me to leave?" she said. "I want the truth to be louder than the excuses," I said. "And I want Clover to not hide when you come through the door." Her eyes flicked. "He hides?" "He stops running to you," I said. "You know it. He listens to air. Right now, ours is wrong." Tears came then, to both of us. Neither of us made a scene. We are Midwesterners. We let the water sit at the bottom of our eyes like work we might do later. She started to speak, and then she did a thing I didn't expect. She said, "Okay." "Okay?" "We're not happy," she said, turning the word in her mouth like a coin. "You fixed it by proving I broke it. I can't talk myself out of numbers. I don't want to. I'll go to Jenny's for a few nights. We'll figure out papers without turning into a courtroom." Her voice was small and brave. I loved her for it, right then, for the first clear thing she'd said to me in months. You can love someone's worst thing and still be grateful when they finally stop trying to make it sound soft. She packed a bag. We didn't break plates. We didn't yell loud enough for Mr. Boyd to turn up his television. We stood by the door in the little square of tile that always looks dusty no matter how often you mop it. "Do you hate me?" she asked. "I don't," I said, and meant it. I felt hollow, a house after a tenant moves out and takes the furniture but leaves the pictures hung anyway. But I didn't hate her. Hate is heavy. I had shifts to work and a dog to feed and a life to lift. On her way out, Clover got up but didn't run over. He watched her, head tilted. He decides who to meet halfway. That night, he didn't. In the next weeks, the boring hard things began. A mediator with soft eyes and a legal pad. A calendar that became a small boat we both had to hold steady so it didn't spill. Small items dividing. The green Dutch oven she loves for soup. My dented cooler that's been to more porches than most people in this city. Sleep on my side of the bed that felt too big. Coffee alone that tasted like coffee and something else. We never put kids between us. It makes the math easier and sadder both. We put a dog between us, and he chose without asking who has the better backyard or the less loud voice. He chose me. The first time she came by to pick up a sweater she forgot, he didn't run to the door. He waited to see if the air had changed. Hannah and I met at a diner to talk about money. We talked numbers like a team, because that was never our problem. We spoke politely about house equity and splitting pieces of a life the way we always split checks, fairly and a little too precisely. There were no dramatic confessions. Ethan became a blank color in the conversation, a shade of gray that didn't need a swatch. "Do you want Clover?" she asked once. Not a trick, not a dance, just a question. "You walk him more." "He comes to me," I said. "But if you want..." She shook her head. "He looks at me like I'm a weather forecast he doesn't trust. He's a nice dog. He deserves fewer clouds." I laughed then. A real laugh. The first in a while. "You're good with words when you stop trying to hide inside them." "So are you," she said. And for a second, it felt like 10 years ago when we bonded over the way we both hate the word artisanal and love the smell of rain on hot pavement. I took the dog. I kept the house until we sold it because that made money sense. I left the stemware rack tucked away where it belongs, a little metal reminder of a time I didn't want to return to. I learned my way around silence without trying to plug it with talk. I worked nights and some days and got used to the way the city looks at 4 a.m., the way the lights at Kauffman Stadium glow empty like a promise. Sometimes I drove by the Hy-Vee and stood in the cider aisle, just to see if the power of a brand name could still make my chest go tight. It did for a while. Then it became just bottles in a cold case. I bought one once and took it home and drank it on my back steps with Clover watching a squirrel like it was a math problem he could solve with focus. The cider tasted like apples and sugar. It tasted a little like victory, the small kind that doesn't feel like a parade. It tasted mostly like a parade. I saw Ethan exactly once. He jogged past me on Ward Parkway, breath fogging, shirt sticking to his ribs. He did a double take, the universal sign for a man caught in the act of having to be a person. "Hey, Sam," he said, not stopping, an apology and arrogance mixed into two syllables. "Keep running," I said. He did. He got smaller. He became a speck, and then nothing. Hannah found a rental off Gregory that had too much carpet and a funny kitchen. We texted sometimes about bills and shared a joke when the Royals finally won a game that mattered. We didn't relitigate. We didn't autopsy. We let the little things that destroyed us keep teaching. The wrong receipt can be a flare. The empty stemware rack can be a siren. The quiet dog can be a choir. People asked me if I wanted revenge. Like what? Tell her boss she used the lunch break like a teenager? Spray paint a word on Ethan's car? I drive through neighborhoods for a living. I see what anger does when it looks for a wall. I didn't want to write anything on anything. I wanted to be a man my dog runs to when I come home. A man who talks to the neighbor instead of making him choose. A man who sets receipts on tables and asks for the truth without needing to break a plate to hear it. Months later, on a cool day when the air in Kansas City finally feels like a fresh towel after a summer of sticky shirts, Mr. Boyd waved me over. "Got a new camera," he said, proud. "Better resolution." "Congrats," I said, and meant it. For some men, this is church. He lifted his chin toward my driveway. "How's the air over there?" "Clear," I said. "Cleaner than I deserve, maybe." He nodded the way old men nod when you've done what men are supposed to do, which is not let the house go to rot. Clover jumped at a leaf and missed it on purpose, because that's his favorite joke. I scratched his head, felt the scar where a puppy collar once rubbed a little too tight before we met him, and thought about the tiny things that tell stories if you lean in. If there's a moral here, it isn't about the big reveal. It isn't about making anyone bleed. It's about how the smallest traces can be the loudest, and how sometimes you have to let them speak before the whole structure comes down. A receipt, a rack, a calendar, a camera. None of those are love, and none of them are proof that you don't have any. But they'll tell you when you've drifted so far from the shore, you forgot how to swim back. Would you have put the receipts on the table, or talked yourself into believing they didn't add up? If your dog stopped running to someone, would you trust the room's air, or wait for a bigger alarm? If this story resonated, tell me where it hit and why. Like, comment, and subscribe for more.